Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm stealing this. I'm Chris. Am I supposed to do this, Connie? I'm Chris Dorobek. Come on out, peoples. I'm Chris Dorobek. I'm the former editor of Federal Computer Week, which is a boring publication that none of you have ever even looked at. And lawyers. Joseph Galbo. He is a social media specialist for the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. How controversial are you?
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we...
Say something controversial that it will tick everybody off.
No, I promised them I wouldn't today.
What's your take on watering Christmas trees? This is very important, people.
Please do it. Please all water your trees.
Water your Christmas trees.
Actually, all your plants. Plants are awesome. The Consumer Product Safety Commission, for folks who don't know, we're one of the smaller federal regulatory agencies. You could think of us as the FDA or the EPA, but we have a budget of about $125 million. So super small. We do have a lab where we do some science, but for the most part, we regulate over 10,000 different kinds of products. So all the clothes we're wearing today, this microphone, these TVs, the wood that they use to make this stage, all falls under our jurisdiction. And I'm the lone social media specialist. I also manage all the content on our websites. Our communication team is 8 people total, and most of those people are public affairs specialists, so PR specialists. So the haters we have come from all sorts of places. Sometimes it's business owners who, maybe we're doing some rulemaking or thinking about doing some regulation that they don't agree with. Other times it's average people who, who's a good group to pick on? Oh, bike riders. Anyone ride bikes here? Any big bike riders here? Okay, cyclists hate it when I talk about helmet safety. I'm like, hey, please wear a helmet. It could, stop your skull from fracturing. And what we get back is, no, bicycle infrastructure in this country is terrible, and you're terrible for perpetuating this lie of bicycle helmets. And and I wish I was joking, but there are just days where I sit there and I'm like, wow, what a time to be alive. But so it's a lot of that kind of stuff. Who else from consumers?
By the way, just because there's infrastructure, there's infrastructure for cars, but you still wear a seatbelt.
Please don't. Let's
Sorry.
not. Please, I beg you.
I'm
we don't have
taking us
enough
off
time. But no, it's, I think whenever I run a social media strategy, wherever I've been, the word I always keep in mind is empathy. I think empathy is the single most important thing you can do when you're running a social media strategy. And the way I respond to, folks is largely just trying to be transparent. At the commission, we do something that's really complicated. Product regulation is a really complicated thing. And it takes a long time, and there's a lot of discussion, and it's scientists and lawyers, and it's all this type of stuff that the average person just doesn't want to engage with, or doesn't have the time to engage with, frankly. So my job really is to kind of take all this complicated stuff that's going on and distill it down to very simple elements. The thing we've become known for a little bit is our safety communication messaging, which is great because to me that's the area where we could just cut loose and be creative and do some really innovative work. And I don't have to explain firework regulation or furniture regulation, which is just the driest material you could ever imagine. So.
Oh my goodness, a government person used the word innovation. The world just stopped its motion around the earth. But talk a little bit about, you mentioned authenticity, other people mentioned authenticity. You said how do you decide what you respond to and how do you respond to those? Because
Sure.
You can't respond to them all, right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to things about regulation, it's actually easy because, like I said, it takes so long to do this type of work, and there's so much science and there's so much discussion, and all of that stuff is public. You could go to our website and find all of our research. You could go to our YouTube channel and you could see all the commission hearings we've had about, the regulations that we're working on. Should we do it? Shouldn't it do it? Our commissioners and our chairman, they post statements on the website about their thinking. So if you're someone who's really passionate about a topic, and I'll pick fireworks just because we've been working on some fireworks stuff recently. If you work for a small fireworks company and you're concerned that we're about to do something that might, affect the bottom line, frankly, you could go to our website and learn everything we're thinking about this topic and then decide for yourself, is it worthwhile or is it not worthwhile? When I speak at other conferences, when I talk to business leaders, folks like yourselves, I always encourage transparency. I always say we are living with the smartest generation of consumers that have ever existed, and they're going to find information about your brand from somewhere, so they should find it out from you. So you should have a website with a really incredible safety section that dives into your product, how it's made, who makes it, where it's manufactured, the materials you're using. People love that stuff, and you shouldn't have to watch an iPhone teardown video to know where Apple is sourcing their products. That information should be out there.
There was also conversation earlier about audience, knowing your audience. How do you decide what your audience is, aside from just saying it's everybody?
So we try to avoid the it's everybody or it's the general public, and we try to segment the audience. When I was hired about 4 years ago at PTO, I was the first full-time social media person. And I think we're seeing that increasingly, like different groups are starting to realize they really need to focus on social media, and so they're actually hiring and not making it just like an other duty as assigned. So what I was able to do was we had been on social for about 6 years, but I had the time and the luxury to look at all the data and analytics about, Facebook will give you tons of analytics. So what's the gender breakdown? What are the average ages of your folks? Do they self-identify as, for example, being IP attorneys? So we have a group of what I would refer to as IP nerds. They're often people who do intellectual property professionally, either because they're an inventor and they've had to learn about it, or they're an IP attorney. And we can get extremely nerdy with those folks. And when I say extremely nerdy, I mean the last 2 years we've put out Valentine's to the IP community on Valentine's Day. The first year it was a
You guys are the biggest geeks.
We are huge geeks.
Oh my
we are
God.
huge geeks. So the first year it was a some e-card style picture, and it used a patent drawing from the 1920s of this. We had a gentleman and we had a lady, and they both had these weird nose plugs that we granted a patent for. And it said, "I love that you're so novel, useful, and non-obvious." And if you are a big IP nerd, you know that that is the criteria you need to get a patent. So they got the joke, and they were like all over it. And then the trademarks people were like, "Where's our card? Why don't we have one?"
Oh my
so
God.
The next year,
IP humor is just a whole different realm.
So they're not haters, but they love us so much that they're like, why don't we have one? So the next year, we actually made a trademark one that was specific and also very nerdy. And this past year, we're like, well, how do we top that? We've done trademarks, we've done patents, and so we have a person who in his free time who loves to write music, and we're like, what if we had a barbershop quartet all about IP? Just like a love song about IP. And if you want to see it, it's on Facebook.
It's good. They did a good job.
Which we
it's
did.
a good
Yep.
quartet.
We partnered with the Alexandria Harmonizers, which is a barbershop quartet locally. They performed it. We didn't make our employees perform barbershop quartet. You probably don't want to see that. But yeah, we got really nerdy with them, and we knew that we could because we knew like they would get it. At the same time, we try to make it not so obscure that if you didn't know anything about it, you wouldn't get the joke. Like if you saw the some e-cards, you'd be like, that seems funny. You may not get the full joke, but like at least you get the general joke. So we try to balance, and we also hope by doing something like a some e-cards, we encourage people to share those, right? So now our nerd audience is sending one to their mother-in-law, and she's learning something about IP or their niece. So we know our core audience. We try to use sometimes our core audience to help continue to spread the message when they're really passionate. But we do try to avoid the like, we cater to everybody, because then it can get very general. And you end up not really saying much of anything.
Yeah, I think for us, I was the first social and tech hire at the museum, like before we even had a staff. I'm like, I don't fix computers. But anyway, I had an opportunity as well to do a lot of research, and what we found was that African Americans are primarily 12% of the US population, but they're overrepresented on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, especially on Twitter, about 22% of the audience on Twitter. And what that means is that they have the ability to drive trending content, and you'll see it in this subset of people, which is known as Black Twitter, have the the ability to drive hashtags. For instance, Thanksgiving with Black families, we're able to share objects from our collection featuring African American families around Thanksgiving, or other topics like Black men smiling, which was a hashtag created to combat negative images of African American men in the media. We're able to share smiling photos of James Baldwin from our collection. It's a way for us to engage with our audience in real time while also sharing historical artifacts from our collection. We also think about how to get involved in moments that are related to pop culture. For instance, there was a certain rapper that recently made a comment about Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman, I was actually leaving the office and I saw Harriet Tubman was the #2 trending topic in the United States. And what I was able to do very quickly was to create a graphic and to add some historical context about Harriet Tubman and her life in that moment. Our audience loved it, and we always are looking for moments to educate the general public and to combat negative stereotypes. National Watermelon Day, we're looking at, we researched the history and found out that watermelon was actually a fruit that was gone for free African Americans before the end of slavery. And it was a tool of empowerment, of self-sufficiency, of the ability to create your own economic power. And then after the Civil War, it was turned into a racist trope. So we're always looking for ways to educate general audiences as well, but also to engage in real time to bring the museum to life for people.
But aren't the most people, I mean, people want, how do I get tickets, right? Or do you not deal with that on...
Yeah, we deal with that.
By the way, my mom's coming to town. Can I get tickets?
We deal with that a lot, and I actually would love to speak about that. So we are the only Smithsonian museum that requires daily passes for admission. Due to the safety and security of our visitors, our history galleries are very narrow, so we still use daily passes. What that means is that sometimes people show up and they can't get in, or they don't even know how to visit. So my team, they spend a lot of time responding to that, and also the day passes are released. Sometimes they get sold out. So how do you deal with that? We try to be understanding and know that for some people, this is a pilgrimage, right? And this is a place that they want to be. So we let them know, like, it's not over. We do offer same-day passes at 1 a.m., and you can also get them online at 6 a.m. if you don't want to come and chance it in person. And we found that most people are understanding of that, and we're usually able to respond. If someone is really, really distraught, then sometimes we do surprise and delights, which will send them a DM and actually send them passes from our visitor services team. We also, on a flip side as well, in engaging with audience, sometimes the audience have the ability to what I call call-outs and call-ins, and I think that's a great way to stay accountable to the communities that you serve.
Questions from you guys? I'll just go and put a microphone in front of somebody's face, so don't think I won't. All right. Oh, yay, thank you.
I'm so sorry. Just before we get started, I was supposed to start with something that we're supposed to say when we do stuff like this.
I definitely know what this is.
Yes, all of these opinions I'm sharing are my own and do not necessarily...
They do not represent...
We do not.
No, please. The lawyers will kill me if I don't say. Do not necessarily represent the opinions of the commission. Thank you very much. Okay. Next question.
Yes.
The photo makes me look even more bald than I actually am, which is really quite
If
horrible.
we disappear after this panel, you all know what happened.
Hi, my name is Ashley Dobson. I do social media for an association. And one of the things that we really deal with negativity online is in places where we are not officially. So there are a lot of groups that were not started by us, started by our members. And sometimes at different points of the year, like when we've had an event or we've had different things come up, they don't like what we've done and they take there to respond. And because we don't have an official presence in that, we don't really know necessarily the best ways to address that kind of negativity online. Or if, we should involve in a group that is more private. So just
real quick question. Do you have stuff you could give people for free or no? Is it not that kind of?
Unfortunately, not really.
Okay,
I mean,
gotcha.
like the one thing that we have that's not already for free is our conference, and that's, like $600. So just
Gotcha. So you're not trying to give stuff away. Totally fair. So when I used to work at a science museum, and dealing with negative feedback was super easy there, because if someone had a bad day or if the museum experience wasn't great, we would comp them some passes and we would bring them back, and then their next visit they would spend more money and have a great time. It's much more difficult in government because we don't have anything we could give people. I think your desire to engage.
What do you mean? You give them consumer protection?
Well,
But we give that to everybody.
yes. But I think your desire to engage is correct. For me, I would recommend just educate folks. If the negative feedback is misinformation, try to correct it in the best way you can. And again, look at your own the websites you do own. Look at those and say to yourself, could we be doing anything better here? When people are complaining, to address that. I'm not supposed to give a ton of company plugs, but Crayola has a really excellent FAQ section on their website. Everything you would ever want to know about that brand is in that frequently asked questions on Crayola's website. So just take a look at it. It's really incredible. And if you're ever wondering, how can we be more transparent? I think they have a really cool model for doing that.
And I have another following question. So one of the things is, it sounds like these might be private Facebook groups or other websites and things. One of the things you'll have to decide is whether you want to be in that space. Do you have the bandwidth to be in that space? I think that if you can be in that space, even if you're just listening, it's helpful. Because every time people give you feedback, that's a gift. They're taking their time to express something about your product and your organization, and that's useful. So if you're not in those spaces, you're not hearing what people have to say. So it's something, based on staffing, maybe you can't be everywhere, but figuring out if there's a large place where people are talking about that experience, could you be in there? Now, sometimes people don't want that sort of official presence. I used to work for universities, and so one of the things we always debated was, how can the university engage with the students where the students are without coming across as creepy, right? If I'm talking about this great weekend I suddenly don't want the university to be like, hey, good job. But if I'm sharing this beautiful photo I took of campus, maybe I would find that positive. So can you be in that space, even just to listen? If you can be, after listening, can you feed that back in to the stuff you're doing? And if you can't be in that space, are there allies and advocates for your group? So if you have something like a really robust FAQ, and we see this on social media, we have people who either work for us or are IP attorneys, and someone will put out something and they'll say, oh, XYZ is so complicated, or I don't understand why it's this way. And someone with that expertise will say, actually, have you looked at this webpage over here? Or, well, the reason it's so complicated is all these other things that you may not know about. And sometimes when we see that negative stuff in a public forum where we're seeing it, we'll hang back and see whether other people will come in to defend us, because we don't always have to be charging forward. Sometimes we just need to listen, and sometimes people are mad. They're like, I don't have $600. Why isn't your conference free? If you have scholarships, you can be like, hey, we have scholarships. But if you don't, it's $600 because there's lots of costs associated with it, and there's staff that run it, and there's AV and nice microphones like this, and that's all you can do. And they're just going to be mad, and sometimes you just have to let people be mad.
Can I address the pink elephant in the room? Has social media changed in the age of Trump?
I don't know in general. That's a big question. I'm not seeing anything from our standpoint, but I don't know.
I mean,
our agency is very nonpartisan. So no matter who's in power, there's people with opinions on these things, and it's not party lines.
I can say, as a nonpartisan, non-political institution, it is our job to educate, and we have found moments when it's important for us to be an educational institution. We have looked at, again, thinking about, there's been an uptick in crimes against people for the color of their skin or their religious affiliation. We've been able to talk about the historical nature of that. So again, adding to the discourse, we've also been able to collect objects around social justice issues, which our curators call real-time collecting. So there's a recent protest or something related to that, then our curators are actually out in the field. They're building that collection so we can tell those stories and add that provenance to those objects.
Yeah, and, so CPSC is an independent federal agency. Our commissioners are nominated by the president, but they have to be confirmed by, Congress. The chairman, same thing, nominated by the president, confirmed by Congress. So it's very bipartisan. I mean, it's actually, it was striking to me how little effect I've felt considering, how much noise is out there about, what's being said on Twitter. And I think we like being in that space because what we talk about is really meant to appeal to all 350 million Americans, and we were talking about audience before, that's who I want to engage with. I don't want anyone to think we have a slant or an angle or, we're trying to do anything other than just protect consumers, which is what we have been asked to do by the American people, so, yeah.
I think the core to our strategy is social listening. So we're always have our ears to the ground. What is concerning for our audience? What are they talking about today? And I think we are able to react quickly with that in a way that allows the museum to engage in critical conversations, but doing it from the perspective of not being partisan or political, but just, again, adding and contribute to an academic discourse.
Megan, where are you? Oh. Megan, somewhere over here.
I see him.
Oh, hi. Here, can you, I'm falling behind on the Twitter, on the face, so can you fill out that? Don't Anthony Weiner me or anything, okay? Come over here. Just saying, I don't need that.
That's dangerous, you know that, right?
Huh?
That's super dangerous to give your Twitter.
Yeah, I know, cutting across.
Hi, my name is Irada. I have...
Helmet, is that what you're saying? You need a bike helmet to come across you?
With your Twitter. So I have a question regarding the government and social media, and someone mentioned that government can be slow, especially in the age when everything can escalate super quickly on social media. My question is how you guys manage that time in between approvals with your top management and the stuff that's going on social media when you have to be quick to respond, but at the same time not over-respond.
So what I would say for us is...
How many attorneys are involved?
Yeah. So we try to keep our approval train really small. So the best thing you can do to be quick on social media, especially with something like that Prince example, you really have to respond right away. Like if it took us 4 days, we're like, oh, Prince, it's passed. Like the moment is over, people have moved on. So in order to be able to turn something like that around that quickly, which we did in about an hour from the time that we saw confirmation that he had passed to doing the research to getting it out, we had to do a lot of legwork. So the thing to do is get buy-in when you're not in a rush situation. So say, hey, something we want to talk to leadership about and get approval on is if a notable inventor or person with IP were to pass away, we would like to do a memorial tweet and it would kind of look like this, and can I get blanket approval to do that? Like I don't know when that's going to happen, but it might happen. I'm going to need to move fast. So if you can...
Really quick, we're running out of time, so let me get to other... Yeah.
No, sure. I think that answer is perfect. Keep your approval chains short. Also, advocate for a culture of innovation. Advocate for a culture that can move quickly. I've been put in a position to succeed by my management team. If they were not so forward thinking, I would not be in a position to succeed. We would not be able to do stuff, that's so creative and, so happens so fast.
So our approval chain is very short. It ends with me. So one of the ways we've been able to do that is by building trust.
Because it's a small organization or because...
I probably have one of the largest social teams in the museum field, but it goes back to building trust. Our leadership trusts our work and what we do, and we have plans and we share a lot of information. I plan out our themes a year in advance, and they also understand that sometimes things react quickly, and sometimes we can explain it later. But usually they do not, unless it's releasing a statement that has to go through approvals, but our day-to-day social strategy, our reaction stuff, that just goes out through our team, and I am embedded in our public affairs department, which may be why we don't have to go through so many different approval layers.
So one of the things about conferences is everyone's going to go out in the break and talk in the halls and give them what should they be talking about? What can help them do this better?
Strategy.
Yeah, having a culture that, rewards risk and, protects failure and, again, fosters innovation.
No, you work for government.
We don't like to talk about failure, but failure is super important. And I didn't get a chance to talk about all the times I've failed running the strategy we're trying to run. But it's happened, and I've made mistakes, but people are understanding. And again, I feel like I have
Is
someone
there more
protecting.
acceptance of risk in the social world in government than otherwise?
I mean, CPSC is a challenger brand. No one's ever heard of us. Every day I come to work and I say, okay, no one cares about us. What can I do to make people care? And when you're running a challenger brand, you have to, play out of your league, and that's what we're trying to do. And I repeat that every day to everybody I talk to.
Wrap all this up in a nice big bow so they can take it with them.
So I would say everyone here today, right, you all have your challenges, you have your management challenges, you have your staffing challenges. Start small. Do one thing. Just make one step forward, and those successes build on each other. So leave this conference with a bunch of ideas and pick one and go about executing it. And then after you pick that one and it's successul, do another one and do another one. And that's how innovation works. It's just gradual. So don't feel like you have to become Nat Geo overnight. We are still chasing Nat Geo. People are chasing us. Do one thing and let your successes build on each other.
All right, come on, kids. So come stand over here. We're in to win this selfie prize, so
yes.
we're all taking our own selfies, and we're on stage, and you're not. Ha 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 ha. So.
Is this the most confused thing? All right, everybody wave. Yeah, there you go. Wave. Tag yourself. Awesome. Oh, no, it's just me. Yeah, there you go. Oh, no, I hear you.
Our heads are all too large.
Yeah, I know. We're all too.